Okay, so again, you can certainly ask questions as you like. But I wanted to do some demonstrations on a couple of different techniques that I feel will certainly help those of you that have sent me in images that you have certainly a variety of different ideas. And I'd like to give you some pointers on how you can go about that. Afterwards, we'll certainly do more directed assistance. So let me switch over to Fusion and we can do some discussion. All right. So this was the original example we were playing with, or any of that. So this was just a basic loft ring that I had modeled. And this was done with, again, just a loft where you have your two different profiles, and then that essentially gets swept along a profile, your actual ring profile, or path in this case. And of course, I can help anybody that needs with the with going about that. Let me close that so we have more space. But wanted to show you how to do a few things, as some people have asked me about. Now, right now, you can see this ring design it's a basic mirrored loft, but it has additional features. Things like this swirling feature along the surface, as well as some surface features cut into. Now, these are done with a couple different techniques. With the indents are done with emboss, and the swirl feature is done with a different technique using a sketch projected onto the surface, and then you could actually use the pipe tool to actually create ridge features on that. Now, one of the things I want to remind everybody, um, while the core project is that you must use your design, or you must use either the pipe, sweep, or loft tool, or any combination of those to ultimately create your ring. And I'll hop over to the other version. Um, you can obviously expand on that. Meaning, let me hide this. The basic pipe ring needs to be at least more than just a simple pipe. I showed you how to use one and then make alterations. No, these are your rings, and no, they do not have to be symmetrical. This is your design. You can make it whatever you please, within abilities. Again, one of the things I'll remind people also is that if you have uh, especially ornate designs and ornate ideas, I'm not saying to keep it overly simple with this project. Certainly, I want you to push what you're learning. That's part of the class. But um, I am updating the second half of the semester projects. So after we have learned more of the basics, this is certainly a project I want to revisit because there will be more to discuss. Excuse me. Excuse me. So with the ring here, if it's a pipe, I definitely want to see multiple pipes or just something more done with it. A simple singular pipe tool will not count. You will definitely need to expand on that. For the sweep, you could most certainly do a more basic sweep. I showed everybody also what can be done by using the sweep tool, and this is, even if it's just a simple oval shape, we made a notch in that, or you make multiple notches, whatever you need. You can also certainly, in that sweep, you can rotate it and allow you to make something much more ornate that way. And of course, the loft tool using that piece. Now, this one I made modifications to and created this feature to hold the jewel. And that's what I want to start with. Just to show you, those of you that are creating rings with jewels, that sort. Now, not everything needs to have a fully complete setting. This one certainly is a much more involved looking one, but there's not really nearly as much as you might think. This ring design uses obviously a wildly oversized jewel. You can do whatever you like. I don't care if your jewel is a teeny tiny little setting or if it's like a ring popped here with just an absurdly oversized one. Whatever, that's entirely up to you. But what I want to start with today is, how do you go about making like some sort of setting? Now, again, this is not a jewelry class, but essentially a setting is just a set of tines or little like fingers that would grab around and essentially just wrap just over the tip top here of the ring of the jewel. Now, again, uh, well, one thing, these little points sticking out is where I should have adjusted my ring size, or my jewel to outside, but we'll figure that out. Um, but it is most certainly just a very simple thing here. So what I wanted to do is show you a couple different ways you can create a setting. So however you go about this, entirely up to you. I would certainly base it around the number of sides this has. Now this one is a 10-sided jewel, and we experimented with a couple different designs. One of the things, and let me switch to auto color modes. It's a little more clear. One of the things is a 10-sided polygon. One of the things we played with last week, if you use the same amount of sides, if you made the same amount of facets as it did sides, you'll end up with a much more ornate looking jewel, like a lot of the other ones here. If you use half of the amount, like here, it's a 10-sided polygon, so only 5 facets, you end up with a more simplified version. So it's up to you, doesn't matter, as long as it has some of the facets. But I wanted to show people how to create a couple different versions of like these little tines or so. So how do you go about that? Well, let me unhide a jewel here, and these are the old ones. Let me unhide the parts and get back to it. So essentially, and let's see here if I did all this on this component here. So I built the ring, loft, standard stuffs. Okay. So one of the things we can do here is make use of showing the jewel. Trying to find which one has the stuff on it. No, 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 no. I'm not seeing my jewel here. Poop. One moment, I'm sorry. I'm gonna pause this while I find my thought I had this all sorted out here. Okay, just needed to make an adjustment. I thought I had my copies there. It was not showing. Okay, so what I did here is I just created a new version. It's exactly the same. It's a loft ring. Okay, great. Well, how do I get from here to say like any of these completed ones with the jewel and all of that? Well, easy thing is if you just have the ring, or rather, if you just have your ring design and the jewel, it's actually pretty easy to create some sort of a setting. So let me grab one of the rings. Where is it? These are all those. Good. This is what happens when you have too many examples in one thing. You will get lost very, very easily. Come on. Oh, I accidentally nested this. That's why it's giving me trouble. Okay, well, whatever. So I'm not sure where the bare body is, so let me just throw a ring or throw a jewel quick. That is all right. Construction plane. I'm just using a construction plane to start from. No problem there. And I'm just redoing the jewel because I can't find what I was looking for. Again, to run through, start with a polygon. Doesn't matter what. Again, one of the main important things with this, I definitely recommend starting everything smack in the middle. So 6 sides. Nah, let's do 8, just because. Where'd my polygon go? What just happened? Disappear? Weird. Don't know. Okay, redo that. Fine. I don't know what's going on there. Hit tab 8. There you go. Simple multi-side thing. Just having to close some things, save some resources. Remember, your basic one here is I'm just simply creating three extrudes. starting from the top, I don't know, let's say 5. Make sure that you have a taper. You can do whatever you want, honestly. I just said that the standard is like -40 or is a 42-degree taper. Doesn't matter what you put in there. It's totally up to you. I'm just redoing this real quick. Okay. So for the sake of the timing, all right. We got a ring. That's where it starts. Okay. Now obviously you want to put this in a position. So first let's move the ring to where it fits best. Now I just realized that for some reason it keeps defaulting to when I move copy something, when I bring up the move tool, just press M or under modify. It's not showing on mine right now, but just there. You can of course add that to your toolbar easily. Make sure that selecting for bodies. And now one thing when you select, remember it's if you don't select smack in the middle, it keeps wanting me to select by face. If you're having difficulty selecting, try to just bring the flat, like a flat platform face, meaning one of these faces that's just horizontal. Snap there, and I can move it in place. Now all I'm doing is bringing this jewel pretty much there. Now, obviously, I should totally scale this to appropriate size, but for the sake of the demonstration, it doesn't matter. Now, all I'm doing is just putting it there, as in I just moved it in place. It's not joined or anything like that. But what I do want to do is I want to create my setting, something that wraps around this. I want to show you 2 different simple ways. To do that, I'm going to start a sketch. Now I'm going to work perpendicular, meaning that the whole thing is built upright. I want to work flat in front, basically the same plane you made your original profiles. Now what I'm going to do here, and let me open these up, just going to hide the ring for a moment. I want to use my jewel as my starting sketch. So what I'm going to do is I can press P on the keyboard for project, or if you go to create, project, this allows you to make copies, flat outline copies of your objects or faces. In this case, I went bodies on the toolbox here, select the jewel, hit OK. So now, and let me relabel that. When I hide that jewel, I have an outline of it. This really helps out. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to literally use that. So all I need is something that kind of basically goes outside of that. So I can use that outline. I don't even have to draw anything else. I could do like a offset. Now, if you don't want the whole thing, you can check this toolbox or this checkbox here that says chain selection. This allows you to just select individual lines. So I'm just going to select like half of this. I'm not going all the way around. If you do, it's fine. It doesn't matter. But I'm just going to drag this outward a bit. I don't know. Let's say -1. 1 millimeter, plenty. Plus look that it's intersecting what this ring will be. Cool. Now, just like we did for the revolve project, this is essentially what I'm going to do with this. I'm going to revolve this, and I need to close this sketch. So I'm working directly on the Z-axis. So let's close that side. And then I don't have to go all the way up top. I don't know, somewhere in the middle. So as I mouse over, you see my cursor change. When I get to the middle, says triangle, great. Or it shows me triangle, snap straight across, there. Now I have an enclosed section. Excellent. Hit finish sketch. All right. Now with this, I can use the revolve tool. If I select that profile, go to my axis selection, Z-axis, and you can see I'm now making this big circle thing. Now I want to do 2 different versions here. The first one, I want to make a really painfully simple one. So instead of doing a all the way around, let's just do like partial. So like, I don't know, 10 degrees. See, just this little section. Now I do want it to be kind of in the middle because it makes it easier to work with. So I'm going to do, instead of direction one side, just symmetric. That way it goes 10 degrees on either side. If you only want it to be 10 degrees total, bring that down to 5 because it's going both directions at once. That's all. Doesn't matter. However big you want this to be. Sure, let's say 10. New body because it's not, because both objects are hidden. Great. Okay. Now when I unhide the ring jewel there, you can see how that just ends up being a little notch. Now, this is way too big, and honestly, it would certainly be better if this were arranged to where this tine fit onto one of the flat sides. So I probably should have rotated this jewel slightly so the flat was matching one of the sides, but whatever. If you want to adjust for that, which you can also do, just make this a little bit thicker so it technically intersects the jewel. Makes it a lot easier. And what I mean by that is if I went back to my original sketch, and let me hide that jewel, if I had also made the offset go, oops, inward a little bit and made my sketch off of that. That's what I mean. You could extend those out, that sort, just so it technically is inside the jewel body. Anyway, so I've made my little section. That's it. Great. And now I can just use a circle pattern to copy that object around the axis. Now it's 8-sided, so let's do 4. There you go. Now, if you did this to where, let me unhide the ring. If you did this to where they are intersecting the body, great. I can simply hide the jewel for the moment, and then I could just do a combine join on these. But if you didn't, if you made this a little bit higher, no problem. Easy way to just make like a joining section on this would be something like, I don't know, just make like a cylinder. Don't even need a sketch. Let's start on one of these planes. If I can just mouse over the one of the tines, that will let me select and make that a plane. I don't know, just draw outward somewhere. Let's say 4. Cool. Okay, that snapped. Drag that downward. I don't want to cut. I want to join those. Boop. There we go. And that locked it all together. Oh, for some reason I was working on that. That's weird. And then when I unhide my ring, now granted this is intersecting, so this is kind of a non-issue, but if this had been floating above, so just going to use a move tool real quick on that, just to show you. So if this were like sitting above it, easy way to then join these together. And if you want these to connect further, like I really want that to actually like be part of the ring, cool. You can easily make that adjustment by, let me hide the ring body, and I can easily expand these outward. I'm getting this halo because I'm working on different components, but you can always use the bottom section. I just selected extrude. You could just drag this downward and extend that downward. No change. Now, granted, that's not going to work everywhere because probably we'll have to isolate some of that because now that made this weird extra section. But really simple way to make those type of connections. If you want to make something more ornate, and let me save here, basic jewels. I know I misspelled it. And for some reason, there's my, what's going on here? What the heck is that? I don't know where that got dropped. Anyway, if you want to make a more basic version, or sorry, that is the basic version. If you want to make something more ornate, oops, where the heck is that? Somehow I accidentally put that somewhere, and I don't know where. Oh, scroll down more. That's all. I hate when that happens. Okay, basic setting or sweating. Jeez, I cannot type today. Okay, cool. So you've got your jewel. You want to do something a little bit more ornate. Same exact thing. I'm going to bring up that sketch I made. And this time I'm going to make a revolve. Same deal. But I am going to go all the way around. Make sure it's selecting new body. I don't want it to join anything. Good. Now the reason for this is, let me hide my jewel. That uh, fancy setting is I want to use extrude and cut to cut chunks away from this. So what I mean by that is I have my design here. I'm going to create a new sketch again on the XZ plane. And this is creating inside. It doesn't matter if it's floating out front, but same diff. And in this case, I don't know, just going to make like a circle, sure, right there. And I'm just going to draw this outward to a real big. I don't know if this is going to be a good, this size is going to work well, but there we are. Okay, finished sketch. And what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to use extrude to bring that drawing forward, and I'm going to let it chop through. So as long as it goes all the way through, good. Now, of course, I can make some alterations here if I want any of these sides to be like fillets or anything like that. I will warn you, if you try to use chamfers on these, sometimes as these get more involved, they will definitely run into weird issues, especially when you're going from curves to angles. So I'm just going around selecting all the bits here, just selecting the edges. And then, I don't know, 0.5? I don't know if that's way too big. Almost. Let's say 0.25, something smaller. There we go. All I'm doing is making that little adjustment. Hit OK. All right. And now I can use the, again, circle pattern tool. So the name of the game with this here is definitely using the circle pattern. And instead of bodies, I want to select features, and I want to make duplicates of this now cutaway feature. Make sure I get all the parts. There we go. Highlighted blue. Good. Axis. Might have to zoom out again. Z-axis. Now, this isn't going to work as well because I made this circle way too big. So I might have to like shrink this down to just 3 for the sake of this demonstration. And hit OK. But now I have these fancier kinds that more grab all the way around a jewel. Now, again, I made that circle way too wide, not too big, too tall. I made it too wide. Had I made it with an ellipse and more narrow, the 4 would have worked. So standard thing would be you're trying to make the amount of tines match some divisible of the amount of sides you made of the jewel. So like if it has 10 sides, use like, 5 tines. If it has 12, use, either 3, 6, something to that effect. You get the idea. Something that's divisible that matches the amount of sides. Let me hide that sketch. It's just in the way. Now, if you made this to where it is not really fitting right, or if it's kind of out, if it's sticking out or anything, one of the things you could do is to cut these chunks away. Now, right now, it's not being a bother in here, but if you needed to, say like you made the jewel and the points were sticking out the side, you can use the combine tool, target body, the setting, tool body, the jewel, but I would want to cut. And you see how now it's going to use the jewel as a cutting tool? Just if you do that, all that's going to do is just slice into the sides of the setting. That's all. But don't forget this last checkbox down here, keep tools. What this does is if I don't click this, it's going to use that jewel as a cutting tool, and then it's going to disappear. Because I just used the jewel literally as a cutting tool. And you can see what it did there. Very minor. It just made a little chip out of that. But if you, let me right click, go back to edit feature, keep tools, it keeps your cutting tool. So that's all. So again, these tines are way too big for this, but that's how you can create that. And of course, we go back to appearance mode and we throw some appearances on there and make it make more sense. All right. So those are how you can go about making some settings. And again, these don't have to be ornate. They can be super basic, however you want. Just something that just grips around the jewel. Okay. So those are the main ones I wanted to show everybody, just those basic settings. The thing I really want to show is Cool. How do you add some features? A lot of it's exactly what I just showed you. Sketching and either using project or in some degree or emboss. So in this design, and we can just make a quick duplicate here before I made these adjustments. Let's see, where are my sketches? And we'll just make a quick duplicate of, say, this ring. And I'm going to just make a quick loft. So just to make a duplicate again, and I'm just using loft because it's the more involved version. Reminding everybody how to use this. I've got my sketches. I have my path, which is the basic ring, the thing that goes around the finger or whatever, the circle, and then my two different sketches, which are perpendicular and on a second sketch. So select the one, select the two. It's going to give me an error. I need to change down here at the middle of the toolbox, guide type to center, and then just select that path. It's going to make half of it. Yes, 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 I know. Go away. Great. I'll just mirror that object. My mirror plane is the origin plane. Operation join, sure. Test loft. And I'm just going to make a new component for this real quick, just so it's easier to see what I'm doing here. All right. Let me hide all the other things. So not working on that. Okay, so we've got my loft ring. Cool. How do I make some surface features? Basically the same thing. We're going to use sketches on construction plans because I want these floating in front. So if I want something on the sides, can work at the top, whichever. So let me use a construction plane floating to the side. Doesn't matter how far out, as long as it's out in front. Hit OK. I probably made that a little bit too long. No problem. As usual, create a sketch, selecting my now construction plane. And I'm again, just to help myself, I'm going to use project. Bodies. I'm going to copy my ring. Great. So now, when I go to, say, hide bodies, I have my duplicate there. That's all I need. Okay. So from here, I could do like, I don't know if I want to make little circles, make little dots, making essentially exactly what I just made before. There we go. I'm also going to make a little wavy line just so I can show you how you can do this. Now I'm going to draw this wavy line beyond my thing here because I'm going to want this to wrap around. But finish sketch. Okay. Just made some dots. Actually, it kind of looks like plank. Anyway, unhide my ring. So we've played with this before. Go to create, emboss, and I want just those two circles. I'm going to select the faces. I'm going to emboss onto that face. Boop, circles. You can, of course, emboss or deboss, goes up and down. Text will work. It just, you might have to fiddle with it. But there we go. Okay, cool. But what if I want to add something along the edge, the side there? Well, that's where I use this sketch, but I can't just emboss a straight line. Now, obviously, you could go back into the sketch and add some dimension to it, make it wider. So you would emboss like a standard sketch profile, something with dimension. But I want to show you how you can use those same tools, sketch and project, to make a line on the surface. Now, this is really helpful if you're wanting to use the one of the other path tool or one of the other pattern tools, which is pattern on a path. Show you how that works in a moment. But for this case, how you create a line on the surface rather than a shape, just a line, is you're going to use project the opposite way. So I have my sketch floating out in space here, but I need to go create a new sketch because there's no project yet. I'm going to create a new sketch, but in this case, I'm going to do it back on the original space here. So it's like I'm drawing right in the middle like I normally would. But what I'm going to do here, go to create, project, and instead of the regular project, I want to project to surface. Now the trick is you have to start a sketch to do this. All right. Faces. Now the reverse is the faces I want to work on. That face I had originally made. So I'm selecting there. My curve is that line I just made. Now it's teeny tiny because what it's doing is it's projecting like a projection would, as in, think of it, you're shining a flashlight and you're making a shadow puppet. It's going to get bigger or smaller on the wall depending on how far away your projection is. That's essentially what you're doing. So the options here are this drop down, closest point or a long vector. I know there's a lot of different extra words, but just know that you can just select the other one. So what that means is I'm just going to make it, see this arrow going back and forth? Yep, that's what I want. I'm going to select the axis. That's what it's asking for. What axis? I check the x-axis over here. See how it's exactly where it's in line with the drawing. Now look at that line that I projected across. That's what I wanted it to do. I wanted it to wrap around. Now it's going to stretch a bit. That's okay. And now I have that line wrapped around the surface. So now, finish sketch, because that is a sketch now drawn onto the curve of a surface. Super cool way. Now I could use like a pipe tool. Where are you? Boop. And let's just make that a bit bigger. I don't know, 3. And if you wanted to cut, obviously there you go. Or if you wanted that to be a join or a new body or anything like that, there you go. That's how you can add features. Don't forget that if you're wanting to use the pipe tool to add features, any edge can work. That means the edge is here. So I could go and use the pipe tool literally on the edges of my sketch, or sorry, of my model. I don't know why the pipe didn't come up. And I can make that bigger. I could even, so this, I saw a couple of designs to where you were wanting to make like some kind of an edge component. You could do it even this way. Now, sometimes the pipe will only let you do so much at once. So you might have to make multiple pipe selections, but that's how that can work. So if you need to make additional features, you could either repeat the pipe tool or mirror it, whatever. Don't know why it didn't save it as the same size, but I don't remember how big that was. Sure, 10. That looks about right. Join. Now, the only problem with this is if I look closely, it creates a little gap. You'll just have to extrude between those surfaces and it'll join. As in, you can extrude one of those surfaces and just drag it outward. I didn't make these two the same size, but instead of cut, join, and it'll just close that gap up. That's all. Makes it easy. So yeah, those are some really basic ways to add features to your surface. Save there. Okay. So the one last thing I want to show you on this is some people had some ideas to make multiples around the surface. You could do that by, of course, if you had, like, say, your ring or your jewel. Let me grab one of the jewels there. Where's my jewel? Oh, wrong project. So if I had the jewel on here, you could make a copy using the circle pattern tool. No problem, as long as your ring is even. But some people are asking me about uneven rings, and easy way to do this is using the same tool, this project to surface, and you can create a path on the surface. So just for the sake of a basic here, let me just create just a shape, literally just a shape. So I'm going to make a sphere smack in the middle. I'm just going to make something that will be like, all right, we'll pretend, I don't know, pearl, whatever. Okay. So let me move that what would be a pearl in this case, drag it upward and plop. Okay, I just want it to be like on the surface of my model. So let's just say got a little pearl there. And so it's easier to see. Let me bring up my appearance tool and I'll just throw like a color onto it. Sure, whatever. Bright red so you can see what I'm doing. Okay. So on this side, I'm going to do basically the same thing that I did before. I'm going to create a construction plane, drag it out. I'm going to create a sketch on that construction plane. I'm going to make a copy of my drawing of my ring just so I can see what I'm doing a little more clearly. And let me hide that other sketch. And in this case, I'm going to use a fit point spline again. And I'm just going to draw, oh, tell you what, actually, since that starts right in the middle, that jewel, or in this case, my little red ball, let's start my fit point spline smack in the middle there. So that way it is more easy to work with. But let's just draw kind of wavy back and forth. I'm not going to go too crazy with this, but there we are. And let's just continue it to where it starts in the middle there. Okay. Remember, you can always adjust your lines, whatever. All right, that's it. Unhide the bodies. My sketch is floating out there. So exactly the same thing I did before. So I have to create a new sketch again on the center. And I can go to project to surface, the faces I want to work on, the ring. The curve I want to use is that sketch I just put on a construction plane. What just happened? Oh, I accidentally selected the point, not the line. There we go. Where's my... Yeah, that one. What's on here? Hiding the origin. There we go. Yep, along vector. My line there. Come on. There we go. I don't know why it forces you to select the axis pane, but there we go. I got my little, now I have my sketch line traced onto the surface of my drawing or of my ring. Okay, finished sketch. Now I can use the pattern tool, but instead of the circle pattern to make just dots around the perimeter of the ring, I want to use pattern on path. Exactly the same thing, only it's tracing on a path. It's the exact same thing as adding text on a path. You could do that too. So my body is that my little gumball, and my path, just like that, is now that circle. Now you have to add however many you want, but it works otherwise just like the other pattern tools do. See how I'm dragging it across the surface? You could add more if you want. Don't forget to save before you do this, but there we go. Now, orientation doesn't matter right now because they're spheres, but on the bottom here where it's saying orientation, it's going to keep it exactly like it's oriented, or if I change the other one to path, it'll just turn it. So these are spheres, you won't be able to tell, but if these were like flat jewels, if you don't make this alteration, they'll all stay exactly like it is. Basically, think of it the difference between like them matching the ring, or it looking like the baskets on a Ferris wheel. They're all going to be standing straight up and down. But hit OK, and there we go. But the cool thing is, instead of it just being in a circle, it warbles around, and you can always go back and make adjustments as you like. But there you go. Select or save, and okay. So that's enough glazing over for now. Those are the examples I wanted to show you, just how to add surface features, any of that. We will certainly play with this more. So let's get started. I went through some of your examples before. If you haven't already, send me those and I'll look over them. Okay, so a few you had some more unique ring profiles that even though technically like a pipe or so, or a pipe tool would probably work, um, a direct circle path is not going to work. And let me show you what I mean. Let me switch over to Fusion. Okay, so this is a simple wavy ring. Now I added some features to it just to show you what you could do additionally to it. And then these are just more pipe tools that I've thrown in there. Still ran into a similar issue right here where I'm going to have to make a cut through to finish that section out, but minor details. Now, the thing about this wavy ring is, unlike, say, when we used the sweep tool and twisted it, this isn't uh, being a this isn't being affected because of the twist of a profile. This is literally a wavy sketch. And let me snap back to just the sketch itself. So how that was created, instead of just a circle, this is actually wavy. And this is how you can create more unique profiles that are still based off of a path circle, but you might need to adjust this. So what I did for this, and I will recreate this. Let's hide those chunks, and I'm going to recreate this. So, oops, didn't mean to do that. Just want to label this. Always label so you can figure out what you're looking at. Okay, let me hide that. So far, what we've done, I'll just create a sketch and circle. Now, this is just going to be a reference point. So since this is just going to be a reference point, meaning this is how big I want the circle, I'm going to turn this into a construction plane, or sorry, construction line. So here in the toolbox, or just press X. Just changes that to a dotted line. Now, the trick to this is I need to actually add something more to this. So I'm not sure why my palette is hiding here, but by default, one of the things on a single sketch, and I'm doing this all on the same sketch. I'm not normally I'd have y'all create new sketches, but in this case, single sketch. If you look at the toolbox for the sketch palette toolbox here, where everything normally is, I don't know why mine is slightly smaller at the moment. There's a checkbox all the way at the bottom that says 3D sketch. Normally, this is unchecked because when you're drawing, this will help lock everything to the plane you have been working on. However, I actually want to build off of that plane. Now, to do this, you just simply check that box. And what that'll now let me do, let me unhide the origin. Normally, I'm working everything off of this XZ plane here. But I want to actually move beyond that. So when I create a line, and actually, hang on a second, let me show you what I mean. So with the 3D sketch unchecked, if I go to select line, see how it's only ever going to work on that 2D plane. I can only move around that plane. So it's either going in relation to the X, or in this case, the Z axis. I actually want to move it forward and back on the Y axis. So to do that, I need to check this 3D sketch box. So now when I go to sketch, it's going forward. See how that line is highlighting outward? That's what I actually want in this case. And if you're having difficulty in a perspective or isometric view, no problem. Simply just orbit around a little bit more so it's easier to see what you're doing. This is a difficult thing because you're working in essentially, you're trying to make three-dimensional movements on a two-dimensional input, your mouse. It just moves forward and back, left and right. You can't like pick up the mouse and move it up and down and have that as an input. So I'm going to mouse over to where those that outline, that dotted line circle, and the x-axis join, and I'm going to go forward this case. So I don't know, let me just make it more extreme. I'm going to go, I don't know, 20. Sure, cool. Okay. If you're having difficulty, make sure to tab over and make sure that's in 90 degrees. See how the little lock icon pops up? Good. Okay. Hit escape. Go down. So now that is a line floating in space. Now, in order to create this wavy line or this wavy ring, I want it to go up. But if you're having difficulty, I can also, if you want it to go up and slightly less down, like roller coaster track style, this works. You can also go backwards. And what I mean by that is just go the opposite direction. However, I need a way to control this. So from the front, I'm going to make another reference point. So dot to dot, that's just one line. All right. And the reason I drew that is because I want to draw another construction line, but I want it to be up an amount. And what I mean by that is, sure, it's going to go to the edge, but I'm going to press tab. I want this to be like, I don't know, let's kind of chop this up. Let's say 15 degrees. So I'm making increments, or if you want, 45. So now I know that's a 45-degree angle, and that's important if you need to control this. Also, the reason we're putting in numbers is if I would later decide, oh, actually, I wanted that 35, way easier to just change that angle than trying to make these dots wherever they're supposed to be right from the get-go. All right. So line now at this point. So this can either go up or back. Doesn't matter. It's up to you. So let's just say, let's go 20 millimeters the other way. Okay, hit escape to get out of that. Oops, I didn't finish the tool. Line tool, that point, going back 20. Good, okay. So now you see, in this case, let me go from the top and you can see more clearly. So one line is going forward, one line is going backwards. Okay, cool. Now I would need to make duplicates of that. So I'm going to go to create, circle pattern, like we've been doing so many of these. Now I just need to make copies of these 2 points. Center point, orbiting around the center, standard, I don't know, 3, you want to bump it up more, totally up to you. See how I'm making these just copies of these lines. Okay. Now the reason for that is now, if I look from the side, look how they're above and below, above and below, above and below. Now I can use a fit point spline, or if you're unsure how you're going to go about this, you can always make alterations, but meaning if you wanted to make this as a second sketch, but we're going to leave this as the same. With that 3D sketch checked, that selection box checked, if I go to fit point spline, doesn't really matter where I start, but I just need to make sure that I'm getting all the points. It gets a little awkward to see what I'm doing, but I'm going to start at one point, now go to the opposing one, and just back and forth. It's easy to get lost. So just be cautious. See, I'm just selecting the endpoints of all of these. And then when I mouse back to, or when I go back to select my starting point, those fit point splines connect and it continues with the curve. Okay. Now I have a wavy profile. And because I put these all in dimensions, if I wanted to change things, say like maybe I wanted to make this instead, I want to make that 30 going forward. Now that changes. If I wanted to make this, oh, you know what? I shouldn't have made that 35. I should have made that 45. Automatically alters everything. So again, this is where putting in numbers using construction lines, this really helps out. So you can always make adjustments. All right, finished sketch. I like what I've done. Now I can just use a pipe tool. Select pipe, that path. Come on. There we go. Wavy, wavy. My computer's bogging down a good bit. Now, I got an error because I made it too large, so it's self-intersecting. Let's drop that back down to like 10 or something. There you go. So that just gets a little confusing. You can also do something like a square. Just be cautious with these because the more complex you make this line, it might self-intersect and you'll get an error. Meaning, there we go, too big. So what's happening with that is that means that curve is just bumping into itself. Sorry, I'm looking up. My lights are flickering. Yeah, I'm getting a self-intersection error. Might have to make some adjustments. Oh, there we go. Okay. Might have to make some adjustments. But super wavy ring. So this can also work if you are making something more involved, or rather than so symmetrical on both sides or back and forth, meaning wavy like, you can make that, you can make a 3D sketch that way. Sorry, I don't know if I'm bogging down here. Let me close some things here. Okay, there we are. All right. So that's how you could create a wavy ring. Now, the reason I might have wanted to go for the square, I could then continue this pipe tool on that edge. Now, I don't want a square. Let's make that circular, and I don't know, 2. Might be too much. 1. All right. I think it's just getting too, I just made this wave too far, so you can make alterations as you like. Anyway, so that's how you could create that. Now, the question was, how could I create something that is less symmetrical like this, but still a similar sort of idea? All right. I'm just going to create a new component. I'm just doing this just to make new pieces. Oops, hang on. I don't want that to be nested. I want that to be outside. All right. Okay. So same idea here. Let me hide the previous one. All right. Starting again, center, some sort of circle that's going to be my reference point. Again, references are always helpful with this. I'm going to turn that into a construction line, press X. There we go. All right. Now we're trying to create something that's a bit different. So again, 3D sketch, line. I'll start at the very bottom because the question was to go more of outward this way. Let's just say 20. Okay. You will need to create points, but that doesn't necessarily have to be all the way around. Meaning that I can say, if I just want this to be a little bit the other way, I don't know, 5. Okay, let's try that. So what I'm going to do is I'm still going to use a fit point spline, 3D sketch active, starting at the top, selecting down, and then it's going to go the other way. Let's see what that does. Oops. From the right side, we're getting a bit more extreme. Okay, now the problem is I'm not being able to really see what I'm doing, and I think I need more points. See how this constricted down here? Or I can try playing with the handlebars. Yes, the handlebar, please and thank you. And just rotate that up a little bit so I get a more even circle. Let's try that. Closer to what I want. Somewhere in there. So let's try that. Now I'm going to leave this as a single side because I can always mirror things. Let's finish sketch. And we can either create with a pipe tool, or of course, any pipe tool, any basic pipe one can be a sweep. Now, problem here is, see what happened at this bottom? I should have made that extension line either a construction line, or if you forget, just unclick the chain selection box. That will let you take away, oops, I didn't want that one. That will let you isolate your lines. See how now it's only selecting that part? It's not also selecting my little extension line. And you can obviously change this around. Remember, you can always change the circular, square. Squares can always be rounded later, whatever. Okay. Now we would just mirror this. Select the body. My mirror plane is my origin plane. And it mirrors it back and forth. Now, problem here is going to be, I get these gaps. We'll see if we can adjust that. Hit OK. Sometimes it's easier to fix. Sometimes it's more of a pain, and you might need to go extend beyond that. But let's see what we can do here. So for this part, let's use the press pull, which is just going to move some stuff forward. Drag that outward a bit. Or if you're running slow like mine is, might need to do this numerically. Now the problem is, look at this weirdo thing I'm getting here. So hang on a second. Make sure. I'm just going to change my mirror to, instead of join, new body. So these are just now two different sides, meaning I can hide one. Okay. Now when I use press pull, it's just going to extend that part. I don't know. Let's go out something like that. 8. See how now it extends beyond that? Obviously, that's going to be way more problematic, but we're going to make some adjustments to this. I don't know. Let's try 3 this time instead. Just kind of trying to see where my extensions get me to. All right, that looks better. Do that first one, change them back to 3 or so. Now, obviously, one of the things can be corrected. If you're having one of the things that makes this difficult, see, I'm getting these weird extensions. I can obviously use the combine tool to cut chunks away. So the target body would be like this side, tool body would be that side. See, I'm getting these little slivers. The problem is, doing this way, I'm going to get I'm going to get these weird interactions. So cutting this way might not work. I could try using the intersect, but that's only going to get me this weird intersection between. So instead, what we could try is what we were doing before, the split body. You can actually use other parts, kind of like the combine tool. But let's see, the body to split. That one. The splitting tool, just the surface of my other side. Hit OK. Okay, figures. All right, so I'm getting an error. All right, so what that means, all of this here issue, honestly, looks like what I should have just done in the first place. Change my sketch. So let's go back to that, edit sketch. So instead of only doing half in the sketch, let's just mirror it now. My objects to mirror. Why isn't it letting me select that? Well, that's weird. Huh. I've not run into that before. That's not letting me mirror that sketch. Weird. Okay. Well, I guess I'm just going to have to make a duplicate. That's super funky. I've never run into that before. It's not letting me, I could mirror that line, but 3D lines is not letting me mirror. Huh. Okay. Well, easy enough, since right now it is just this one other extension point. No problem. So let's just duplicate that one. Yep, can't do 3D. Okay. So that means I can either just draw a line over here directly, or I could use a circle pattern, make just one. So since it's just this one point, it's only 5 millimeters out, let's just make a copy of that. So a line on the other side, it's going to be 5 mm out. There we go. Okay. So do another fit point spline. That point, that point, that point. Okay. And I just need to go back and adjust, oops, my handlebars so they match. Why is that so much bigger this time? Same there, same there. So this might be a little funky trying to get this to match. I'm not sure why. I've never run into it before where it won't let me mirror that part. So I'm just trying to get these to match using my line as a reference there. And now, since I can go back and let's just chop away one of these and edit that feature. What? Oh. Nope, I just wanted to delete that. Delete that. All right. I just want to extend my pipe tool so that it goes the rest of the way. There we go. So the bottom works just fine. Weird little connection point there, but that's all right. I can make that adjustment later. But the top I'm getting, because it's where it starts and stops, I'm getting that little section, but it did close it up for me. So excellent. So that would be the way to work. Okay. So remember, you could always go back and make and adjust this. So meaning that if I say, oh, I really want the bottom point to be further, double click on your dimension and I don't know, make that 30. Finish sketch, it'll recalculate. There you go. Now remember, if you don't want this to go all the way around, that's not a big deal, but you might, instead of making this a complete circle, maybe just start and stop it elsewhere. Meaning, instead of making your sketch go all the way around, you could always say stop it before it gets all the way to the top by adding a point or anything like that. If you're trying to remember how far to go to that, remember to use reference points. I don't know why it's not snapping to there. That's frustrating. So you could always make your fit point spline go to there instead of all the way around. So it's up to you. But anyway, I just wanted to show how you could make more insulated elements, or sorry, more unique features, more unique designs. Could even say, could have made two different ones. So meaning if you're not sure, let's just copy that, finish sketch. Could always just make a new version, new sketch, paste. And that means now the original one that I made before is hidden. And this one I can modify however I like, meaning instead of the original line that I made, the original fit point spline, we'll delete those. Delete. And I'm going to make a mirror of this first one. There we go. Just making a copy of that point there. All right, cool. So now I could go around and use my fit point spline to make my copies. Still super weird that it won't let me mirror that line. Anyway, do the same on the other side, meaning connect to point, connect to point. connect to point. Now I just got to go through and make your adjustments for your fit point spline handlebars. Let's get those to match, or at least as closely as we can. The top, twist that a little bit. Same, twist that a little bit. Cool. All right, so now I have my new adjusted one. Use my pipe tool. Uncheck chain selection because I want to go all the way around, but now it stops at that end. So your thing doesn't have to go all the way around. So yeah, that's how you can make that. That's how you can make those pieces function. Takes a little more work, but it's just about tweaking the design you already have. Okay, just wanted to show you all that real quick. A few of you had some not fully planar ring designs, so something like this would work out. So try that out. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, so hopefully those help you finish out your ring designs or at least get you well underway. And if not, we'll work on them next time. But good luck with it. If you run into way too much head scratching, if nothing else, look online. I won't say a guarantee, but I'm pretty sure there might be a YouTube video or a how-to or something like that that can help solve your issues. So never forget, I take no offense to you looking at other places for finding solutions. So good luck with it. We'll work on them next time. Thank you very much.